Good morning, 23 to the hour of 8 o'clock, and we are kick-starting the discussions, and the protection and inclusion of refugee rights is our topic this morning. We shall be diving into the progressive approaches to refugee rights with a host of guests that I'll be introducing very shortly. But let me just give you this preamble. The Global Refugee Forum, GRF, is a platform initiated by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees to mobilize and support the international community in addressing the global refugee crisis. The first Global Refugee Forum took place in December 2019 in Geneva, Switzerland. Its primary goal is to garner political and financial support for the implementation of the Global Compact on Refugees. The 2023 forum is co-convened by 6 states: Colombia, France, Japan, Jordan, Niger, and Uganda, and co-hosted by the government of Switzerland and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Joining me for this particular discussion are Phiona Niyijena, the Executive Director at Capstone Action for All. I'm also joined by Lukendo Mbokani, a committee member, Africa Refugee-led Network, and Robert Hakiza, the Chairperson of the Africa Refugee-led Network. Many thanks to and welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to say gentlemen and lady, but I realized that we are yet to agree to the fact that there's a king now in England and no longer the queen, so the gentlemen come first. But anyway, let's do the needful and stay on course to how things have been. Ladies first. What is your impetus at Capstone Action for All when it comes to the refugee rights question?
Thank you very much, the host. My name is Fiona Niyijena. I'm Executive Director for Capstone Action for All, an organization that is based in Nachiva Refugee Settlement. And basically our vision is to see that there is an established and a sustainable community in a refugee setting. And our main objective is to improve the livelihoods of refugees as part of also the objective of comprehensive refugee response framework for Uganda. So we are basically trying to see that the livelihoods of refugees are improved, support them, support the PSNs, support the youth talents, because we know the highest population is the youth and they make the nation tomorrow. So we are trying to see that we promote their talents and making sure that there is peaceful coexistence between the refugee community and the host community.
Okay, peaceful coexistence between the host communities as well as the refugees. That's a very pertinent issue. Of course, we shall be delving into it. Mr. Lukendo, you're a committee member at the Africa Refugee-led Network. You and Mr. Robert Hakiza come from the same network. What is the impetus ahead of this particular forum?
Yeah, possibly. Thank you so much, and good morning. Possibly just really to mention that I also work for the Refugee-led Organization Network, which is Relocation Uganda. That is basically focusing on, advocating for refugee rights across the country, but also, providing capacity building to small and less established refugee-led organizations. So, we look at, supporting them, providing funding to some of these small and less established refugee-led organizations, such as, for example, the organization that Fiona works for is one of the beneficiaries of the refugee-led organizations. So specifically this year, maybe, we've been really focusing on, creating awareness for refugee rights by training them on national, regional, and global legal framework as far as refugee rights are concerned, to make sure that refugees that are based in Uganda really understand what their rights are, for them to be able to speak from the informed point of view, but also to be able to advocate for issues that they are facing at a local level. Just like, you know, the organization that Fiona is actually leading is already doing. By the way, she's one of the champions of the refugee-led organizations, and we are so happy to have, you know, this conversation here this morning.
And perhaps Mr. Robert Hakiza, in your position as chairperson of the Africa Refugee-led Network, you'll be able to give us the overview of refugee rights landscape in Uganda today. What are the pain points and what are the areas of intervention?
Thank you so much. My name is Robert Hakiza, and thanks so much for my colleagues for what they have said so far about you know, this refugee-led organization. So I stand as the current chairperson of the African Refugee-led Network. I think maybe I should give a little bit of background, so where this comes from. As you know, back in 2018, for the very first time, you know, refugees around the world, they came together for the very first time. They came together, that was in Geneva, where we had our very first Global Refugee Summit. And one of the major objective of refugee coming together was, you know, to say no to what has been taking place, like people, you know, talking on behalf of refugees, yet refugees, they know better their issues than anyone.
Have their own voices.
So, we came together and say we need really to push for meaningful refugee participation. So we really wanted refugees to be part of all the discussion that's affecting their lives, and to have a say, not only to be there physically, but to be there and also to be part of the discussion, and you know, because they know better what they are facing than any other person. So from there, the you know, members that are part of this Global Refugee Summit, we agreed that we're going to have a regional summit, network. That's where the African Refugee-led Network came from. So in total, we have 6 at the global level. That's come together, they make the Global Refugee-led Network. So here, I share the African Refugee-led Network. But down here, we have, of course, as you've heard my colleague, we have RELONs. RELONs, those are refugee-led organizations that we have at the country level. So this is one of the things that we've been working on from 2018 up to now, trying to organize refugees in different countries so that they can create their own network. And we are very happy and very proud to say that Uganda has been actually taking the lead into this, because actually by the time that we've been discussing this at the global level, RELON Uganda was already there, you know, and this is really something very important to say. And I myself, I come from my own refugee-led organization called Young African Refugees for Integrated Development, which is also a refugee-led organization, and we've been working since 2008 in Uganda, and our area, we are just looking at how to support refugees to integrate and also to become self-reliant.
Okay. Let me just go back to Mr. Lukendo Mbokani. He spoke about the fact that a legal framework is in place, but many refugees might not be in the know of exactly what their rights are and how best they can enjoy them or take advantage of available opportunities given their status. Could you tell us, because when I hear the word or read the word progressive approach to refugee rights, it means we already have existing approaches that we've been undertaking, and Uganda has gotten a glowing tribute on its handling of refugees and the policies around refugees. Now, if there is need for progressive approach, that means there is need to improve on already what is working very well. Can you explain exactly what the progressive approach to refugee rights is?
Yeah, thank you so much. So Uganda really it's known because of its open door policy. And I think, you know, if this policy wouldn't be there, possibly we wouldn't be sitting in this studio now. So this has really allowed refugees to associate, to come up with their own initiative, to create employment opportunities for themselves. You know, it has also allowed refugees to live peacefully with the host community, the peaceful coexistence that my colleague Fiona actually talked about. So generally, refugees based in Uganda are really enjoying, these rights. But possibly, I wanted to really make one very important point as far as the refugee right to associate is concerned. I don't know whether you are familiar with Refugee Act 2006, which gives the refugees all the other rights apart from the right to vote and be elected to the public offices.
No, I'm not particularly privy to that.
Possibly, I would recommend you go and read that act. Now, there comes one provision that gives the refugee this right to associate as a local citizen, where the initiative,
public office,
exactly, where the initiative, like what my colleague Robert talked about, like Yarid, Relon itself, and Fiona's initiative, have to have a status of local initiative, not regional, international, or continental. But then the issue comes between the Refugee Act and the NGO Act, where the NGO Act does not actually recognize the term refugee. And to me, this becomes a little bit problematic because we are in the same government and the act is actually contradicting the other. So that's where now we come in. And we think that it's very, very crucial to have a harmonized, way of implementing these two acts because they are from the same government. So yeah, I think that's really what I can say as far as the progressive policy is concerned.
Okay, that's interesting. Madam Phiona Niyijena spoke about the mandate and the push with regard to your organization. Many times host communities find themselves also needing their rights to be observed, while refugees are also calling for their rights to be observed. And within that context, conflict emerges. All people have their rights. How are you intervening in this particular space to ensure that there is harmony between the hosting communities and the refugees themselves as each enjoys their rights?
Thank you very much. As part of our mandate, we are trying to hold the community dialogues because, there is too much pressure of the new influx when refugees are coming in. So we have to conduct the community dialogue to educate the host community that the situation, the circumstances that have forced these people to come into this country is ABCDZ. So we organize such activities like football, MDD, such games that bring together the refugee and host communities so that they can live in harmony. And also, when we are implementing projects, we make sure that 70% goes to the refugee community and 30% goes to the host community. So both communities benefit and they are living peacefully, because even the refugee community goes to the host to seek services, probably to do the casual labor and get something to sustain them. So through such activities, and even in schools, you find that refugees and Ugandans, they go to same schools. So you find that it's part of what makes them live peacefully, and they understand that despite the difference in cultures, they can still live together in harmony.
Okay, before I come to Mr. Hakiza, there is a context that we need to get very clearly. When refugees cross from one country to another, the thinking at that time is, what is the reason for crossing over? It could be war, it could be the honest search for perhaps better environment, if at all. For example, aspects like climate change are occasioning floodings and other environmental disasters upon them. is the process of crossing from one border to another final in the sense, for example, you're not looking at the fact that let me go to Uganda or let me go to Kenya, and then when things stabilize, I return to Uganda or I return to Kenya or the Democratic Republic of Congo. Is it a case of once we've crossed, we now have to seek our new status as people living in the other country? Is there a mechanism, for example, for relocation or resettlement back to the community that most of these refugees came from? Does that happen?
Yeah.
Possibly, if you don't mind, can I speak on that?
Oh, please do.
Yes, I think it's very clear that when somebody is seeking asylum, of course the country, the hosting country, have the obligation to implement the non-refoulement, principle. But then once the person is within the country, there are 3 solutions that are provided for those who are signatory to the 1951 convention. And one of them is local integration, in case the hosting country can actually give such solution to a person fleeing. The second one is voluntary repatriation. So meaning that's where you're talking about if somebody still aim to go back in case things stabilizes back in the country of origin.
Especially those that have been forcefully moved.
Exactly.
Because those who are seeking asylum are a different case.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the third one is resettlement. This is when, for example, things within the hosting country did not work well, and then possibly this person thinks that maybe should seek protection in the third country. Then this person can actually be resettled. There are several countries that accept to resettle refugees in their country. So I think Uganda has really been one of those countries across Africa that has got this open door policy that welcomes actually everybody. And then to determine whether you are a refugee or not, I think that's now the work of the government to do that, but while already people already on the Ugandan soil. So which is, I think many other countries in Africa should actually take a leaf and follow what Uganda is doing.
Okay.
Maybe can I just add one thing from what?
Please, quickly.
I think it's very important that we understand how things have changed. As per the 1951 convention, a refugee is someone crossing the border, leaving his country to cross to the other side, maybe because of war or persecution, where when the situation is normal to their home country, the person will go back. But we need to understand that right now, the situation has changed completely, because once a refugee crosses the border, they never think of going back because of, there have been ongoing, like if you look at my country in Congo, there is ongoing conflict since 1996 up to now. We have our colleagues from South Sudan. They have been in war for so many years. Actually, we have the cases for refugees who have been, people who have been refugees 2 or 3 times, because when they go back, again another conflict starts and they have to go back. But also, we need to understand the time. Like right now, the majority of the refugees have been, in a protracted situation. So 5 years, we have in Uganda, for instance, people have been refugees here for 25, 30 years. And in this situation, it's really complicated. People have disconnected completely from where they came from.
Okay, that's very interesting. This question ought to be answered by you and Madame Niyijena. The aspect of refugee-led organizations in the streamlining of the workings of government and the refugees, especially when it comes to critical interventions. Are you classified as NGOs? You talked of conflict between the NGO Act and the refugee law framework. When it comes to either registration and operation, do you operate like an average NGO in the country, or there is a special arrangement for refugee-led organizations and how you conduct business? First you, and then we shall hear from...
I think, as you may know, the Uganda refugee policy is known at the global everywhere. That's the most progressive and generous actually policies. Actually, it's one of the best in the world. And why? Because of the major two things. One, it gives, once you're a refugee in Uganda, you're given a freedom of movement, so you can move wherever you want, and the right to work. And number three, I think it's very clear in the Refugee Act that refugees, they have the right to organize themselves in association or group, and which association they can actually register them. It depends on the size of the organization. Like on the small one, they can easily register as a community-based organization. Or if you are big enough, you can register as a local or national organization. And this is how things have been operating. Like I remember my own organization, when you registered the first time, in 2011, so it was very easy to go to the NGO board, you register, and they recognize you as a local organization. But recently here, I think 2 or 3 years back, 20 things have changed completely, whereby none of these refugee-led organizations are actually allowed to register as a local organization, and that's where the problem is. And it's affecting completely the way we operate, because you can't imagine a small organization that has started here in Uganda, and then when you want to register, they want you to register as international or regional.
Okay, so what's the particular challenge here, especially for Capstone Action for All, being a refugee-led organization? The challenges he speaks about, you're not looked at as any of the indigenous CBOs, there's community-based organizations or NGOs. What is your experience like?
Besides that, I want to first thank the government of Uganda, because the fact that we can have that right to start NGOs, it's a credit.
That's a good one. It's a good point to start.
Yeah, it is a credit. But of course, there are very many challenges. First of all, the bureaucracy and the requirements that are embedded in. So to a refugee-led organization, it's a bit challenging in that some requirements may be hard for you to get, the high charges, the lawyers, and getting all the required documents. So probably if they could ease the policy to refugees, as far as registration and making the organization formal is concerned, because there are very many refugee-led organizations down there that are not registered because of those challenges. Even getting the memorandum of understanding with Office of the Prime Minister, it's another hectic process to take. So those are some of the barriers that are encountered in the registration process, but we are trying to advocate as part of our mandate as well to see that there is some ease, especially getting the memorandum of understanding with the OPM.
Okay. Yeah. What are these beacons of success that we look at and say this organization has stood as has positioned itself for true transformation of the refugee community in the country? I know it could be one of you or one of the organizations that you are leading, but what I want to bring out is a policy shift where you can look at and say, if it weren't for this particular advocacy or campaign, this status we are enjoying wouldn't have been achieved this particular way. Is there any one of you that can cite such a scenario?
I really think generally there are a lot of achievement, specifically that we can easily see refugee-led has really achieved in the several past years. When, for example, we look at the case of Kampala, refugee-led organization that are based in Kampala, they have so many vocational trainings. And the policy within the country has actually allowed them even to have memorandum of understanding with DIT, meaning that even, community...
DIT, that's the Department of
Directorate for Industrial.
Directorate for Industrial.
Yeah.
Exactly. So meaning that beneficiaries, including refugees nationals that graduate through this program, they have a certificate that is nationally recognized. And you see, that's really something very, very important that this government is actually doing, allowing refugee-led organizations to have to implement such kind of activity. For example, when you go to the settlements, where Fiona is based and so many other organizations, you find that there are organizations that have got schools. By the way, their schools are one of the best schools in the settlement. For example, if you go to Changwadi, there is an organization called Kobuas International. They have a school that is one of the best schools in Changwadi. And to me, when we look at the policy, if Uganda wouldn't have gotten the best policies, such things wouldn't be happening, specifically being done by refugees. Basically, YARID, the organization that my colleague Robert is actually heading, I really don't want to talk much about it. He's here, but they have also got a lot of achievement. They implement a program called Bridge to Formal Education.
Bridge to Formal
Education. I think it's one of the best programs that a refugee-led organization has ever implemented in the past several years.
Let's talk about it. How are you bridging this particular initiative, especially the right to education?
Well, I think we all know the challenges that refugees face when it comes to integrating into the national education system. Like if you look at a child coming from Congo, or let's say in a French-speaking country, who migrates here in Uganda, you can directly imagine the challenge that first they face, starting from the language, and also even when you go to the education system itself, it's completely different from where they come from. So the bridge to formal schooling, it's a really a project and a program that has had a very big impact. Actually, so far it has supported over 10,000 refugee children to integrate into the mainstream. So what we do, we organize what we call the bridging kind of program. It takes up to 6 months, whereby we have teachers and mentors who are supporting the children. So we have both teachers from the Uganda side, and also teachers from where the refugee come from. So they take them through a program that actually supporting them to smoothly integrate in the Uganda education system. And it has been working here in Kampala. We are implementing in Kampala, but also in the refugee settlements. So, and it has supported a lot of refugee children to integrate, and who are actually right now, some of them at secondary university because of this program. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good integration strategy that you're on, and of course, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Ms. Niyijena, when does a refugee cease to be one and become a Ugandan?
That's
is it possible? One, for example, you say there are nations that have a framework, a legal framework in place that if you spend 10 years in a country and perhaps avoid the going against the law, then you will qualify to be a citizen. What is the citizenship integration criteria like, if there is one?
I feel though like I should speak on that question.
Why? Give her a chance. She hasn't spoken a lot. What? Is there anything like that? Are there refugees, for example? Of course, the challenges we've had, as shared by Mr. Hakiza and the gentleman there earlier, the fact that some people won't want to return. And they're like, we are okay, let's settle here, let's become citizens of this country. How does a refugee begin to work on becoming a citizen?
For the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen such an achievement being done.
Okay.
I think probably we hear about the social
honestly,
integration.
Yes, I think when I start speaking, I talked about 3 durable solutions. I talked about local integration, repatriation.
In fact, that one falls under local integration.
Exactly, in the resettlement. Now, for the Uganda case, Uganda, I think the laws on integration is not really that much clear.
Yes.
Much as you might be here, he talked about that we have refugees here who have been here for the last 30 years and 25 years. So I think on that note, really, the laws have not been clear. And it's actually very problematic in some sense, right? Let's take an example of refugees coming from DRC, for example. I'm a bit familiar, because myself I'm a Congolese, I'm a bit familiar with the laws in DRC. So if a child is born outside DRC soil, you must declare this child.
Uganda?
No, to the embassy.
To the embassy?
Yeah, 3 months, within the first 3 months.
After birth?
Yes. If you don't do that, this child loses citizenship.
Of Congolese citizenship?
Yes, Congolese citizenship.
Okay.
Now, what happened in Uganda as well, if your parents has come in Uganda as a refugee, it's very difficult to acquire a Ugandan
So there is a
citizenship.
possibility that the children of the refugees
are stateless. Yes, exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Wow.
So it's I would say it's really problematic, and I think this government should really look into that and come up with a clear pathway on how to support some of these young people that are being born on this soil.
All right, gentlemen and lady, I'm glad this conversation has brought us to a point where we have to tell government to work on that particular aspect so that we do not end up with a population that is stateless. Many thanks, Robert Hakiza, Chairperson of the Africa Refugee-led Network, for the perspectives, and many thanks to you too. Phiona Niyijena, Executive Director at Capstone Action for All, as well as Lukendo Mbokani, a committee member at the Refugee-led Network. It's been a pleasure hosting you and understanding your perspectives from the kind of work that you are doing.
Thank you so much.
That will do it for this Kickstarter discussion, but do stay with us. When we return, we shall be dealing with humanitarian services through Rotary. It's also related to something that could be similar, but being undertaken by an exclusive society. Stay with us. I'll be right back.